Next up, we have the Post-it note task hoarder. You may be wondering what I mean by this, but what's funny is that we still have a lot of people using Post-it notes. I think maybe we're all guilty of this, right? In this particular case, we had someone who was tracking their tasks with Post-it notes in a little more extreme version. So this story happens to be one of my favorites. I was sitting at an airport, actually going to do a talk on organization and information architecture. And I'm sitting there looking across from me at this laptop with a Post-it note. It's like color-coded Post-it note system of tasks. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is going on over there with all these Post-it notes? And there's this piece of paper flapped down. I'm trying to figure out what's going on over there. And as luck would have it, she ended up sitting next to me on the plane, and I had the wonderful opportunity for me, anyway. I'm not sure if she found me uh, quite as interesting, but we got to talk about it. And I asked her, I said, I do SharePoint and I do organizing and stuff, and I'd kind of really like to understand what's going on here. And she said, well, this is how I organize my tasks, and they're color coded, so I know kind of what category it belongs to. And this white piece of paper here, this flap down, that I use to cover up on my Post-it notes. And that's kind of how I secure things. And so that was her security system, right? So, gosh, I had so much to talk about with her because I had to know why Post-it notes. It's not something you see very often. And she said, well, I didn't have a better way of doing things. So I laugh a little and we joked about, this being a little extreme, but we all have our ways of working around how to get the job done most effectively when we don't have a better tool. And I had asked her about SharePoint. She mentioned she did work in the government space, and I knew they had SharePoint. And she said, well, it was an older version and it was kind of clunky. It was hard to use. And she said, well, the other thing too, if I use an Excel document, I tried that, and if I delete things from that Excel document, then I don't have a history of what I've done. And so SharePoint didn't work and Excel didn't work. And I thought, God, where do you keep your old Post-it notes? Do you keep those? You said you have a history. And she said, yeah, I keep those in a shoebox in my closet. Thought, oh my gosh. But again, we all have our ways of working. She found something that worked for her, but we're all still using Post-it notes. We can chuckle a little bit at this scenario, but I've got them on my desktop right now. We see them on monitors and we have them stuck to our desktop. And then a lot of times we're working from home now. We have opportunities to work remotely. Maybe our kid is sick and we stay home that day. Or maybe we're fortunate enough to have a job where, we're working from home 3 days a week now, or you're on the road and you travel. And when you use Post-it notes, they're stuck wherever they sit, right? And you may not have the information that you need when it comes down to that point in time when you go, oh no, I left that Post-it note on my desk or on my monitor. So we want to talk about some ways that we can better manage those tasks. In SharePoint and some other third-party tools I've got to show you guys. But we can work our way out of using those Post-it notes that we end up leaving all over the place that we can never find when we really need them. Next up, we're going to talk about task lists. So we've kind of covered the document side of things. I do want to touch on the task list as well. Tasks can be managed and delegated, right? If we get them into SharePoint or into another third-party tool, it's going to assist with visibility across the team. We're not just hoarding our tasks. With SharePoint 2013 and 2016, we've got some basic project server features that includes integration with Microsoft Project. That is not the upgraded license to Project Online. We've got some basic stuff available right out of SharePoint. And then I'm going to show you a demo for Wunderlist integration. That's actually, I wouldn't say that's new anymore. It's probably an old slide. Wunderlist is now the to-do app. So I'll show you guys what those look like as well. Okay, so for our sites, we can enable, there is a project feature that you can enable, and it gives you a task list by default and an issues list. And so in here, this is just, it's a basic SharePoint list. It's just focused, it's a task web part, or sorry, a task content type. And you have a full list of tasks that you can track against any project. And what I like about this, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. There is here. So you can see I can now group my tasks as well. That was something that was previously missing. I can assign custom metadata to any of the tasks in my task list. And so, you know, it's kind of getting a little closer to what we have in that Microsoft project client with all the fancy bells and whistles. But it's super simple and easy for the user to use and understand. These checkboxes here, you know, I can just click on that and remove it. But let's do this one here. If I check that, you'll notice it finishes my task for me. It marks it as 100%. So you kind of have 3 levels of management here. So the first one might be that you've got this chart at the top where you can have management come in and just kind of get a quick glance at how things are going, what should be done, what's left on the project, that sort of thing. You can change those colors. It's actually pretty flexible on the color changes. Then you have your complete task list where your end users can come in and update, or you could manage and add new things. And so super easy for the end user. But for those project managers that also need to kind of have that next level of management on the project, up in the ribbon, you'll notice it's under the List tab. We have Open with Microsoft Project. That is going to sync, and this takes a minute to load, so I already preloaded it for you here. But it is going to load Microsoft Project. And so what we have is the same chart at the top. We've got all of our tasks synced. But now we can do, as the project manager, we can have all the resourcing and all of that that we want to have managed in here in the platform that they're comfortable with. And so you only have to license your project managers for the client, and then all of your end users can manage their tasks in SharePoint with their SharePoint license. Now, the one big difference here is that you're not going to have the oversight across multiple projects. That's what Project Online does. So you would be able to manage them at an individual level on individual task lists if you want that big oversight on all the resourcing across all projects. That's your upgrade. Okay. Now, when I open this Microsoft client, it's sync 2 ways back to that task list. So as the project manager, if I make a change from here in the client, it is going to sync back to that task list in SharePoint. And if I'm working within SharePoint and syncing it back out to Microsoft projects. So all of my tasks will be updated one way or the other. If there is a conflict, it's going to prompt me and it's going to tell me about that conflict. So pretty straightforward thing. One word of caution, I have heard reports from customers that for very large Microsoft project files, if you've got images in there or if it's just a really large document, you may experience sync issues. So I would be cautious on the size. I don't have an exact size to give you. I don't know if there's an upper limit. That's something I probably need to go research. But just be aware of that. It's really good for simple task management. If you're looking to do the really heavy duty stuff, you probably do want to look at that upgrade to Project Online.